Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan from the Leather Elves. I want to welcome you guys. I don't know about you, but it's beautiful where I am. So thank you for spending Friday evening with us. So as usual, I have some intros and reminders for you guys. I'd love it if you would like the Leather Elves on Facebook. That way you get notifications when we go live. And you can check the Leather Elves page for sales, flash sales, surprise pop-up events. Follow the Leather Elves on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I know that I will never be a YouTube sensation, but it would still be fun to have some subscribers on YouTube. So if you guys could do that, that would be great. Last week of the BOGO sale. So we have been completely overwhelmed with the response to this, which is amazing. And I know I just saw Frank's out there, and Frank, I have 2 more toys to make for your order, and I promise it'll go out. My goal was today, but yeah, that didn't happen. So, but yeah, 1 more week for the BOGO, and that will be done at the end of the month on June 30th. All right, so we want to talk a little bit about the Lacey Act. We talked last week. The Lacey Act will affect all of us. It'll affect anyone who has companion parrots as pets. It will change the way we transport our birds. It will change, if you've got a veterinarian who happens to be across the state line. I know in Kansas, you're in Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas, and that's still crossing over a state line, even if it's just down the street. That will be affected by the Lacey Act. So the QR code will take you to more information, but you really do want to consider looking further into that. The Cavalry Group is a great resource for that. And I know Adrian Mock, who is usually on Friday nights, is also doing some work on that on behalf of AFA. So lots to look into and really think about it. I think sometimes as companion parrot owners, we get complacent, and it's that oh well, my bird's just he's in my house, and I'm allowed to do that. Well, it could change. There are people that don't want us to have those birds in our homes. So look into the Lacey Act. It's the Lacey Act amendment. It's really important. And it is an amendment to the Competes Act. All right. Business out of the way. Yep. Thank you, Nick. Nick put the link in the chat. So that should make things a little bit easier for people. Yep. Contact your senators and congressmen. Ray, thank you for doing that. It's very important. All right, so let's get started. My guest tonight is someone that I met through IAATE, and she has the cutest daughter ever. Hi. So I'm just gonna talk to the baby instead, Jess. She's a star, huh? Yes, you are. All right, so this is Jess Euliano. Jess is a certified professional bird trainer, knowledge assessed. She's been working with animals professionally since 2008 and consulting with parrot owners since 2017. She has shaped her career through experiences at zoos, aquariums, wildlife sanctuaries, rescue organizations, and research facilities. Her goal is to help others learn how to apply positive reinforcement and build better relationships with the animals in their lives. She has a BS in psychology from Florida State University and has been a professional member of IAATE since 2011. So that's a lot, Jess. It's, I think what I pulled out of that was you want to help people build better relationships with the animals in their lives. And I think that's so important. I mean, that's kind of why we do what we do. I think. So how have you been?
Yeah. Good. We're good. I'm in Florida, Tampa, Florida. So it is hot and sticky down here. And it's actually, I think we're going to get a thunderstorm. So hopefully there's no rumbles that you can actually hear through the audio. But we're good. Everything is good. Yeah.
And we're being joined by the most adorable little girl there.
Huh. Yes, this is Lillian.
Hi, Lillian. Lillian, you're a star. This is big stuff. She's like, no, I'm good right here with mom. So Jess and I talked about what we wanted to kind of get across to the audience tonight. And one of the things is really that, oh, no crying. There's no crying in training. It's
That's
okay.
right.
It's okay. But so the one of the things we wanted to talk about was behavior consulting and how there are things that we expect, there are things that you expect, and we really want to talk tonight about how do we manage those things and make it a good experience for everybody. So we're going to start off with some easy questions though. Jess, all-time favorite bird to train, what is it or was it?
It's just so tough when people ask me this. I always say like one bird and then I'm like, oh wait, and then this other bird, and then oh this bird was cool too. So it's really hard to pick. But I would say that I love working with corvids. One of my favorite birds that I've ever worked with was a pied crow. She was It's just a lot of fun because as a trainer, she's a challenge. They're just so intelligent and they're such problem solvers, and you really have to be a step ahead of them. And so as a trainer, I find that very enriching because it's just fun. Like I got to be like two steps ahead and really be prepared and just be like quick with reinforcement and just almost it's just so fun to work with birds like that move fast and are just always solving problems. And also their capabilities are just through the roof. Like they can do so many amazing things. And so that's also really fun as well. So I like the crows. I also loved a crested caracara that I worked with at the zoo, but kind of the same idea. He's also like a very calculating, problem solving, just really intelligent bird. And of course, the vultures are that way as well. So those types of birds are a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think sometimes they get overlooked. But I always say with the corvids that they remind me what a crap trainer I am. That it's, they're like seven steps ahead. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess we'll move on now. I had Fung on a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how do you know when to move forward in your training? How do you know when it's time to
Yeah.
move on to that next approximation? And corvids are like, bang, 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 I'm done. Oh, wait, did you not catch up? So
Yeah.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
pretty
It's a good
cool.
litmus test for like the interns or like the beginning level trainers. I'd be like, all right, well, everybody wants to work with the crow and that's cool, but maybe it's good for you to just go in there and try it, and you can see. Then you tell me after the session if you feel like you're ready, and it's either one way or the other. They'll go in there and be like, well, that crow showed me. I guess I'm not ready. So it's just funny to watch them. Um, I'll say it this way: they teach trainers a lot.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think, that's an important message too for people who are listening, that a lot of times our birds do teach us. They teach
Yes.
us what if we're observant enough, they will show us what we're doing right or wrong. And I think we
Yes.
just we need to pay attention. So,
Yes.
so do you have a funny training memory? Anything that
Yeah.
sticks out?
I definitely there's the animals are just funny, and there's so many instances where animals have made me laugh. So yes, there's a lot. One noteworthy one was uh well, I we took the bald eagle one time. We used to always take him to all of these ceremonies where they just wanted him in pictures, so we would do like Eagle Scout ceremonies, or like we would do like a 9/11 ceremony like on a yearly basis. And we took our bald eagle one time to one of these ceremonies, and he took the biggest poop of his life on this like really nice car in the parking lot. And I was just like, I just didn't even know what's wrong.
Life is just not happy right now.
Here, I got a snack. Oh, no. It's okay. Look, I have positive reinforcement for her.
Wait, maybe we should look at this as an example. So who's training who in this box right
Oh,
now? Hmm.
I know. And I totally reinforced a really bad behavior.
not a bad behavior. It's kid behavior.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
kid behavior. But yeah,
so
so
yeah,
he
pooping
so he
really
just yeah, he just I mean the car that he just chose to poop on was I mean and we were just in a situation where we couldn't stop and we had to leave, so we couldn't even stop and tell anybody or even attempt to clean it up or even we were just kind of like all right, we got to go. And we left and we kind of like felt obviously we felt bad about it, but what are you going to do? I mean, listen, you want a bald eagle in your ceremony?
happens.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
happens. So, what made you decide that you wanted to do consulting?
So the reason I wanted to start doing consulting was because when I left the zoo, which was a really hard job to leave, um, I wanted to continue. I wanted to keep honing my skills, but I also wanted to share what I had learned. And it's such a niche kind of thing, like being a bird trainer and having that type of experience. Not a lot of people have the kind of like resume that I have. It's just very unique. And it was a way that I thought, would be a good way for me to be able to take all these things that I've learned at the zoo, not only just working with birds, but with a variety of species and help people who have parrots and birds in their homes to, maybe understand behavior better and see things from a different perspective and get some insight from somebody who he just has a lot of experience with not only different species but also positive reinforcement and how to truly apply it because a lot of times when you read anyone can read a textbook about operant and classical conditioning, but applied operant and classical conditioning is a really difficult thing to learn unless you're hands on with it. So I wanted to be able to show that to people that have birds at home and just give companion parrot owners a level of knowledge that I think is kind of hard to find.
Mhm. No, I think those are all that's a really good reasons that it's so true. You can talk about it all day long. You can talk about
Yeah.
this is how you do it. And for me anyway, I'm a very visual learner. I need to see it happen. I need to see how that works. I need to see what the mechanics are and then I need to know why. And I think in consulting, you can give people the answers to what it looks like and why it needs to happen. So, what are the things as a consultant that you are addressing most commonly? So what are the issues or the questions that come up the most for you?
So the maybe top three most common concerns that people have with their birds, biting is a very common one. Um, Screaming is another one. Uh, and then probably things like plucking, like overpreening, and that's a real tough one. That's a very complicated, very complex, and it's a very challenging behavior to tackle. But I would
Mhm.
say those are probably the top three things. And aside from plucking and overpreening and that type of thing, the like biting and screaming, I feel like generally all comes down to relationship. Like we really got to take a look at, how good of a relationship do you really have with your bird? Why is your bird biting you? Well, it tells me that there's an issue with trust and we need to build a better relationship. And even with screaming, sometimes that's another one of those behaviors where it could be occurring for a million reasons. And so sort of narrowing it down and figuring out why that's happening is going to be, first things first. But I do think that even with a behavior like screaming, I think we always need to look at relationship and trust and how are you with your bird. Does your bird do things for you voluntarily? And I mean voluntarily, like they do it without coercion or corralling or being poked or touched or even just shoved to the side a little or I didn't touch the bird, but did you scare the bird a little to the thing. Just the little details like that is really kind of where I think those common behaviors of where we start with is looking at relationship and trust.
And I think too, when you mentioned coercion and you mentioned corralling and things like that, and I think so they have a pretty bad connotation. People are like, "Oh, I would never use coercion." And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we do, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. As a professional bird trainer, you still sometimes take that step back and go, "Oh, that wasn't the best way to do that. That may have been
Yeah.
some coercion going on." And, are there places where well, no, it works, but does it
Hmm.
work long term? It doesn't. And I think, the other thing is when you were talking about those behaviors, screaming, over preening, I get calls and messages all the time. Here's what my bird's doing. How do I fix it? I wish, and I'm sure you do too, that you had that. Oh, well, you just do this. Oh, well, you can fix it this way. And, Jess and I would be gajillionaires and we would be on the yacht right now and somewhere. So
Hmm.
it, that when you talk to a consultant as someone who's coming for assistance, you are I was going to say never, and I don't like to use absolutes, but I am going to say never. You're never going to get a complete answer from just saying, this is what, my bird's biting, and how do I stop that?
It's such a
You need
loaded
more.
question. Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it, um, so yeah. So it's definitely, there's so much that goes into consulting. And I think sometimes people go, oh, well, you've got this set of answers that you give people. And well, if you're biting, here's like, you should be able to, okay, let me see, biting. Yep, here you go, biting. This is the answer for biting. And well, yeah, here's the answer for screaming. It doesn't work that way. And I think
No.
it's it's up to the owner or the person who's working with the bird to give you that information.
Yeah.
So I think so. So do you do most of your stuff online or in person?
Um, I have recently been really doing almost all of it online. So I'm doing video chats, and a lot of that was really just because I started doing more of it because I just had a baby in the last year. So I was having trouble, actually going and doing in-home consultations for a while there. It was just kind of hard to do. But also, um, I started to feel like video chat consultations were really effective, and they were helping people. And in some of these cases, I felt like I was really getting a lot of work done just via video chat. And so it really kind of built some steam. And I was like, all right, so we'll just keep doing this. So the bulk of what I'm doing now is video chats. I still do in home consultations, but it's, I typically stay close to home. So I'm not, I have like a radius that I'll drive. And if
Mhm.
somebody's really, really, really feeling like they want an in home consultation, but they're outside of my range, then I will give them a quote. I have to change the pricing of it a little bit. But I have really recently just been doing mostly video chats, and it's been a lot of fun.
I've done both, and I really think the online approach, it's a very different it's a different perspective, but but it takes that. I mean, sometimes when you would go, and let me tell me if you've experienced this. You go to a home to do an in-home consult, and all of a sudden now there's this new person who's entering a situation with a bird that may be having some problems or some issues or challenges, and you step in as the consultant, and suddenly there's a whole nother dynamic that this bird is having to or this animal's having to deal with. Um,
Yeah. No,
so
that's definitely um I've definitely experienced that. And I think that it can be limiting sometimes if the bird is really uh just like stranger danger because someone new is there. And I find that that is a very common thing too, because people that have companion parrots, like that's actually one of the initial things I ask people is I say, okay, well, how many people interact with your bird? Because I think that's a relevant question, like, because we got to look at that. If are you the only person, or do you have a family of six that everybody wants to interact with the bird and everyone's doing different things? And everyone's kind of all over the place. There's no consistency. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference if I walk into someone's home where it's maybe just, a husband and wife and they're African gray and it's been that way for 30 years. And then all of a sudden I show up and the bird is, I hear a lot of, he's never done that before, and so then, then we have to tackle that. And it is hard to do a behavior consult with a bird that's behaving so out of the ordinary that it's almost not fair, to really waste somebody's time or money in a situation like that.
Absolutely. When I do consulting, one of the things I like to talk to people about is I need all the information I can possibly get, and
Mm-hmm.
if it's not in person, for me, it's easier to kind of tease that information out from people to say like, okay, how do we get, you got to tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And in person, sometimes that doesn't happen because it's, the bird is interrupting, for lack of a better term, part of
Yep.
that dialogue that needs to happen. So what would you tell people if someone said to you, so what can I accomplish by having a consultant? What can
So
people
I would
expect to?
say, yeah, so I would say that it is important to have realistic goals and expectations, and to also understand that where I can help you learn how to use positive reinforcement, but I can't do the work for you. Like, you are the one who's going to have to take what I'm giving you and apply this knowledge and use the techniques. And I'm not the one who lives with this bird 24/7. You are. So I think that's a really important thing for people to understand, is just that, it's very worthwhile, and it will help you if you are open to learning what I can teach you about how to use, positive reinforcement and really apply all these things and be really consistent. But I can't do it for you. And that's just the most important thing. Cause I think I actually just talked to somebody today who was like, oh, well, I know I also do board and train. I board birds at my house. I have like an aviary out back. And so I can take a few boarding birds. And I'm also training, because I mean, even if people don't really want training, if I have birds here, why would I not? I just can't help myself. But I had somebody just yesterday, or was it today? She was like, she called and she said, okay, well, I saw that you do boarding. So if I drop my bird off for like a week or two, can you fix X, Y, and Z behaviors? And I was like, So that's the caveat to doing the boarding. I have to really explain to people that, well, sure, if you drop your bird off with me, I may or may not, in the amount of time that you give me, be able to reach X, Y, and Z goals. But does it really matter if you're not willing to, when you come pick up the bird, take the bird home and then apply all the things that I've been doing and mimic exactly what I've been doing and be consistent, or else that bird, and birds are, of course, they're intelligent enough to discriminate against, know people are different. Like, people, I have birds that do board with me on a, like, I don't know, not regular basis, but just consistent enough to where, they come here, they know the environment, they know me, and they behave a certain way. And then those birds go home and the owners will say, oh, this bird, I'm having trouble with this, or I can't get him to do this, or how did you get him to do this? And they're just smart enough to know, like, well, this person will allow me to get away with this. But when I come here, there's a structure and there's training. So, I think that that's probably the biggest thing that I want for people to understand about consulting, is like, I can help you. I can give you the tools. I will give you the knowledge, and I will help you along the way, because I'm definitely not like a one session type consultant. I think that's baloney, honestly. Like, you have to really help somebody for the long haul. You can't just, and this is just me, but like, I would never expect any of my clients to see me or talk to me one time and then I'm like, okay, see you later. Like, good luck. Like, it's behavior changes, so therefore the plan must change. So
Right.
I think that it's just important that people realize that there is a lot of homework involved and you got to do
Mhm.
it.
Oh yeah, and it's and I think the problem being, Jess, is that there are consultants out there who do promise the quick fix, who do promise the, oh, we can fix your bird in a week. And again, you can fix it, but it's not going to be for the duration. And
Right.
so I always tell people there are no quick fixes. And I tell people that this behavior didn't come about overnight, even though you may have noticed it overnight. That yesterday it wasn't happening and today it is. It's probably that you just noticed it. And you're not going to be able to fix it overnight either. Um, so Terry says, how do you physically set up for a successful consultation?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I like to try to help people. I try to set people up for success before I ever do a consultation with anyone. And the way that I do that is whether I'm doing an in-home consult or a video chat, the thing that I ask my clients to do for me is I say, okay, at some point before we actually do either a video chat or an in-home consultation, I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I would like for you to address these questions, answer them to the best of your ability, and then also tell me any other relevant information that you think might be important for me to know before we even are face to face in any capacity, because that will tell me my brain is just turning, already. So it'll give me like a good head start, a jump start. Um, when I read someone's email prior to a session, I already have like all of these thoughts in my head about, okay, well, we could try this and we could try that. And then when I see you
Mhm.
in person, I adjust all those things based on what I'm seeing and all the variables that I maybe didn't know about. And and I think it gives me the ability to um, get a jump start on the sessions again. So I don't like to waste people's time or money. Like I don't like that. So I like to go into things prepared and already having some ideas as to what I think would be, good ways to modify behavior. So, I mean, I think that's one way to set yourself up for a good consult is to try to get as much information beforehand and to already kind of, for me as a consultant, to have a plan. Obviously, it might change because I haven't seen everything yet, but and then it also takes a little pressure off of my client because then they're not, you know, they're not so much deer in the headlights. We've had a conversation, we've exchanged information, and I don't charge people for like emails and stuff like that. As far as contact goes, to me it's just more important that like I want to help people and I want to help birds have good relationships with their owners. I mean, just like we talked about in the beginning of this, like that to me is just way more important. I'm not going to nickel and dime somebody about, emails. And so I'll even tell people if you want to take a video of behavior that you see that if you can get it on video, um,
Mhm.
you can send it to me in an email and I will watch it and take a minute and respond to it. And I'm happy to do that before we've done a session. And I will certainly do that after we've done a session, because again, that's just a follow up and
Yeah.
everybody is owed that. So those are the kind of things that I do to set people up for success and also set myself up for success with consultations.
Yeah, when I do consulting, I send out like a questionnaire, and it's
Yeah.
what's this, what do you think are the best reinforcers for this bird? What have you used in the past? And I think physically, Terry asked about physically too. I think physically, initially, you want it to be in a setting that is fairly distraction free. It's not going to stay that way, and we all know that because life happens. But your initial, if you're meeting with a behavior consultant, initially you want it to be um, kind of that's where your attention's going to fall. It's not the phones ringing and the doorbell and people are walking in and out, because that's not fair to anyone. It's not fair to the person that's doing the consult, it's not fair to the learner, and it's not fair for the bird. So
Right.
physically, Terry, I would make it as you know as close to what the bird is used to all the time, as far as physical setup is concerned. If you've got a bird that's very comfortable in the cage, so I would start my first consult with them, in like a protected contact situation where they were in the cage, and I would work with them from there and see, well, this is a good example.
Oh, yeah, this is from a clip from my Facebook page. From this was years ago. I had a client who she just had a couple little parakeets, small birds, and in this case, it was actually a few years ago. So I'm trying to remember. I believe these birds were fearful, and so she was working on just getting this bird to voluntarily come out of the cage. One of the things that I tell people is when you have a fearful bird, or really even in any case, I think um, it definitely builds trust if you treat the cage like a no human zone. Like, don't go putting your hands in there, because that's their space, and that especially for a fearful bird, that's going to scare them, and that's going to break trust, and they're not going to be looking too forward to the next time you show up if you're putting yourself in their space. So we were working on reinforcing this little parakeet for parakeet cockatiel.
Sorry, it's a little dark.
That's okay. I think the video was not the best quality. But yeah, so we were just reinforcing this bird for on his own accord coming out of the cage. And then once the bird is out of the cage, we can work on things like, getting to a target perch maybe, and then working on stepping up from a specific location. So the bird learns, well, I only get stepped up from this spot. So if I want to come out, then I do it on my own. And then she picks me up from this one spot. And if I don't want to get picked up, then I won't go to my spot. And that's how they can clearly communicate, what they want or don't want. And then you're not breaking trust. We're not doing things they don't want, or that we're allowing them to communicate clearly with us. And so, so that's what that little clip was showing.
Yeah. And I think it's really important too, that it is on their terms. It's not people like, oh, so you let the birds run the show. No, I listen to what they're telling me. And I think that's key for people. That I was working with a young lady who has a green wing, and he wouldn't come out of the cage. He was, down in the corner, and we got him. She posts pictures of him now on Facebook, and he's, like this wonderful, like hanging out with her, just, letting her do whatever kind of bird. But it didn't start that way. It was if he would approach without lunging, if he would take one step onto a perch that was right next to the cage door without, lunging at the person that was standing there. We got him to the point where he would come down. Joanna, always on their terms. He would come down a set of perches. And when he got to the end, that was like this huge success. And, other people were like, so he walked down a bunch of perches. And it's like, no, you gotta know where he came from. And I think, that's something too, when we're talking to clients. I think one of the things is celebrate those small successes. I'm sure you tell your clients the same thing.
Yes.
You've got to appreciate those.
Yes. Yes. We talk about that a lot because I'm sure you've seen, and if you can hear my dog having a dream right now, she is barking in her sleep, and I'm really sorry if you can hear that, because it's funny, but it's, kind of distracting. Anyway, yeah, I'm sure, Robin, that you've probably had the same experience where you would maybe have had a client who was like, you see their face when you say something like I'll get excited because the bird like leaned towards somebody with the slightest head tilt or something. And I'm like, oh, reinforce. This is great. This is great. This is good. And they're like, what? Like, what did I just reinforce? This bird barely moved. And I do have to, really explain sometimes, like, we got to get excited about the baby steps, because that's what all of the success is made of. That's what an approximation is. Sometimes it's just looking in the right direction. Sometimes it's just even that slight little, or when they do the little foot dance where they touch the toe and pull it back, like if the bird's never done that before, hey, that is a big deal. And I think sometimes when people want to do consultations, sometimes their goals, I think part of it is that maybe their initial goals are just be way far beyond what is really needing to be addressed. And so, someone will come to me and say, I want to free fly my macaw, but the bird doesn't step up for me. And I'm like, well, we're about 837 steps away from even thinking about, getting to that point. But you got to celebrate the little stuff, and sometimes people think I'm nutso, but it's the baby steps that are so important.
Yeah. And I think people get there's kind of some false promises that happen out there when people see, the YouTube sensation bird who does all these wonderful behaviors well, it's the same kind of bird that I have. Why can't, my guy won't even, step up. He won't take a treat out of my hand. And I think it's really about that tiny, tiny, and, it's kind of like a life lesson too. So from doing consulting, I've learned a lot of life lessons. And I think one of them is about celebrating those small successes and celebrating any kind of, step in the right direction. And, for you guys who are listening, I know it gets frustrating. You're like, nope, I'm going to teach him to do X. And you're like, well, he won't do X. He'll only do a part of it. Okay, so he's doing a part of it, and that's the beginning. And then reinforce that part of it, and then build on, decide when, we've talked, like I said, we talked to Fung. When is it time to take that next step forward? When is it time, to increase your criteria? But it's all about being, those little successes are so important. So, Jess, I wanted to ask you, as a consultant, what do you expect? Because we titled this Consulting Expectations, and I think it goes both ways. So what do you expect as a consultant from your clients?
I think my expectations have certainly evolved from like the first consultation I ever did till now. So I will definitely say that much. I think my expectations for a client is, first and foremost, I want my clients to be open, and that's probably the biggest thing for me. Like from the get-go, like I want to work with people who are open and receptive and want to learn and are dedicated. Some of my most, I don't know, noteworthy, I guess, I don't know, clients that I love talking to are people who have like 5 parakeets, tiny little birds, but they care so much about the well-being and their relationships with each one of these tiny little birds. And I think that is wonderful. I think that's great. And because those are people who, they're open, they understand, they want to learn, they know the importance of it. And it doesn't really matter if you have a cockatoo or a macaw or a cockatiel. It's the people who, and I can tell when I talk to them, like the people who really just will say things to me like, I just want my bird to have the best life ever. And when I hear that, I'm like, this person's open. This person wants to learn. And this is a person that I'm happy to teach and I want to work with. There's no, like the people that don't want the quick fix basically, or, that know that there's work and like want to do whatever it takes. So my expectation, I guess, would be just the openness. I want the openness. I want the willingness to learn. And maybe not an expectation right off the bat, but after maybe some initial conversations, I also expect, oh, this bird is so cute. His name is Petey. I also expect people to maybe after, speaking with me a little bit, to understand that you're going to make mistakes and it's okay. It's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself. This is how we all learn. Like, do you think that I've never made a training mistake in my life? Like, I've made plenty. It is part of what has shaped me today. It's the reason why I feel like I even, can come into your house and tell you what I think is right, because I've made so many mistakes and I've learned what not to do. So that's also part of it, is to, I want for people, to know that it's okay to make a mistake. You just go back next time, change whatever variables need to change, try it again. Behavior is not absolute. We can always change it. So if you don't like what happened on one day or in one session or in one moment of the day and at some point in time, there's always a new start. You can always start again and change something. So I also expect my clients, after a little bit of maybe talking to me, that they can be a little bit easier on themselves. I want them to not be so hard on themselves. And that's particularly hard when you have issues like, feather plucking and stuff like that. So those clients, I feel like, are very hard on themselves. And some of those clients are the ones who are the most open and the most willing to learn. And I know that's tough for them, because, those are difficult behaviors, and sometimes it's a roller coaster. You can get a handle on it, and then all it takes is one day for them to pluck all those feathers out again, and then they feel, like they've failed. So I want for people to also, just know that, like, it's okay. We're all doing the best we can, and that's all we can really do sometimes at the end of the day. So.
No, I think absolutely that it's that openness. And I think for me, one of the things I really ask for is honesty. So,
Yeah.
if you guys out there are going to talk to a consultant, don't sugarcoat it. If there's a nightmare happening in your bird room, the consultant wants to know about it. They want to know what's going on before, what's the antecedent to it, what's going on afterwards, how do you respond? And don't be embarrassed. You are absolutely not the first person out there who's had this problem. I guarantee. I don't know about you, Jess, but I've never had anybody come to me with a behavioral issue that I've never heard of before. I
I
mean,
agree.
it's pretty
Not
much
one person. Yeah.
no. And people are like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, especially like you said, birds with feather destructive behavior issues. It's, oh, I'm so embarrassed. He's, plucked out all his feathers, and it's because I know it's because I'm doing something wrong. Not necessarily. And I think
Yeah.
it's, being open to suggestion, being honest, telling the consultant that you're working with, or, maybe you're not working with a consultant, maybe you're working with a peer, somebody that you've met at the bird club who has a good handle on training, who's willing to work with you. Be honest as to what you're seeing, so that the person who's trying to help has a good picture of what they're working with. I think that's really, really important. And I think too, when we were talking about what people can expect, I think sometimes people go in and they expect a lesson in behavior analysis and positive reinforcement. Well, yes, that can be part of it. And for me, I used to do a session, and then I would, write out some different definitions of terms and things like that, and send it back to people after the session. This is what we covered. Here's how you can use it. And here's your homework. You mentioned homework. I always give homework to my clients, so by next week,
Mhm.
let's work on this, and let's have these goals for next week. And I ask them to send me video too. Some people aren't comfortable with that, but it's as a consultant, it helps a lot to be able to see that. But sometimes it's not just the behavior modification. Sometimes it's husbandry. Sometimes it's nutrition. And
Mhm.
those kind of things can make a big difference. And if you're working with someone that's been doing this, like I said, someone from a club who's been doing it longer than you have, who has a good handle on things, or a behavior consultant, those kind of things can come into it too. I mean, have you had situations where it's been, maybe nutritional was part of the issue, or
Yeah.
environmental, stuff like
Yes.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I actually I'm gonna go ahead and just say that I would say probably about 90 to 95% of my clients need help initially with understanding how to create a more natural level of motivation. And so we do look at diet because I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Like most people feed their birds way too much food. And they have like a buffet of food that's offered all day and all night and it consists of all the high value stuff and all the, candy bars of the bird diet are just readily available all day every day. And I would say that that's literally probably almost one of the first things every single client that I've ever had. Like we address that initially. And again, that's one of those things where I can address that before I even have a consultation. So in order to set myself and you up for success in the first consult, that's one of my first initial questions that I send via email that I want to hear about is what your diet, what's your feeding routine, and do you measure the food that you give your birds? Most people don't. They just dump in food when they just refill bowls endlessly. And that is a major factor in training because as you know, Robin, like if you offer all the high value stuff all the time, it takes away the value of those high value foods. And then when you like if your bird has a pile of pistachios that's just sitting in a cage next to him all the time, then if you offer a pistachio via your hand for a training session, they don't care about it. So things like that definitely need to be addressed. And the other side of that as well as there's a motivational issue there, so we have to deal with motivation, fix that, so we have a bird that's has, and I call it a natural level of motivation because birds in the wild don't have silver bowls that just refill themselves in the rainforest. So when I say natural level of motivation, that's what I mean. I'm by no means saying that we need to cut back diets and make birds hungry so they do things. No. That's not it. But what I find is that most people don't really know how much their bird consumes within a day. That's just like a reasonable amount for them to become satiated because they just always refill food bowls and they don't know. And that's also something that's important from a veterinary standpoint. I come from a background where, let's fill the 20-ounce bowl to the rim. Yes, please don't. Yeah. I come from a background where I worked at Zoo Tampa for almost 10 years. Every animal has a diet that's been vet approved, and there's an amount that is set for them. Now, granted, we're trainers, so we would adjust the amounts if we needed to, but I know how much an animal's getting every day because that's one of the first things that a vet's going to ask you. When if your bird gets sick and you take that bird to the vet, your vet's going to be like, okay, well, how much is your bird eating a day? And you're giving your bird a buffet all day with all the good fat snacks, and then it never eats the pellets or the veggies or anything that's has nutritional value. Not only do you not know how much the bird's eating, but you also have a bird that's really kind of just getting full on the stuff that is fatty and delicious, but maybe not the most nutritious. So that's like the other side of that coin that we always have these discussions like initially. About diet. And I always specify that it's twofold. It's for motivation, but also from a health standpoint. You really want to kind of know exactly what your bird's eating, how much it takes for them to be satiated, like normally throughout the day, like a, reasonable amount of food. And so I suggest to people like start measuring, get out the measuring cups and start measuring. And that's really the best way to figure it out. Look at leftovers and be like, all right, well, the bird ate only half of what I gave him. And he ate only half for like a whole week. So, I always say, give it a week, like be consistent, offer the same amount of food, look at your leftovers, measure things. You're probably going to find that your bird eats about the same amount every day, and leaves about the same amount left over. So that's going to tell you a lot about how much your bird eats comfortably when there is an unlimited amount of food. And that's going to give you a really good idea as to what a diet should look like And then if we adjust the diet, we'll have a bird that's motivated. And then we can set aside the high value stuff, use that just for training. And then all of a sudden you have a bird that can't wait to see you because you're the one that shows up with all the good snacks. It helps you build a relationship, also helps you shape behaviors that you like. And that's such a key thing for like making all of the rest of those steps happen with modifying behavior.
Yeah. It's,
What are you doing?
oh, I
This
think it's so true though, Jess, that, the free feed, and it's not, you're not, I want to make it really clear that you're not saying we're going to, hold back food and we're going to not give them enough. It's just making sure that we're not overfeeding. We're not
right.
overindulging. I mean, I think for a lot of us, it's, oh, I want them to be happy. I want them to have food all the time. Well, in the wild, there's not food all the time. That's just
No.
not a thing. Oh no, you were taking a nappy and we woke you up. Um, and so it's really about how do I get that balance to happen?
Yeah.
And what are the high value foods? What are the high, what's the first thing that goes out of that? Okay, so that's what you
Yeah.
offer as that relationship of that wonderful item. So I think that's a really diet is so important and critical to the big picture. It's not just about I'm going to do a training session, I'm going to, she's fine, she's fine, we might have to cut this short because mommy needs to take care of you. So I just we can, the last thing, well, we can jump ahead. The last thing we were going to talk about, Jess, was what should someone look for in a consultant? So if, you were going to go out and you wanted to have somebody work with you, what kind of things would you suggest that people ask, or what do they look for in a consultant?
Well, I would say, I know you had put when we talked prior. A good thing to do is to ask other people about me. Like, I don't mind, get a reference, ask other people who may have worked with me or anyone who knows me or has worked with me, even even before consulting, like ask someone who I worked with at the zoo or somebody like you, and get try to dig up some info. I don't care, dig up the dirt on me. It's look at my social media. I think looking at someone's social media is also very telling. And I can't say, I mean, that not everybody maybe keeps up with social media, so it might not be fair to say that for somebody who doesn't really keep up with it. But um, I know you can look at my social media and it should give you a pretty good idea of like what I do and the kind of I try to post every bird that I have worked with, at least for the most part. And when I put stuff on social media, I'm kind of long winded. I'll write up an explanation as to like what we were doing and what the goal was and all that type of stuff. And that's my website that you're looking at now. So you can certainly check that out. I've got, there's information about my background here, and a lot of what I think is a good takeaway from my website is I think it really gives you a sense of like what kind of a trainer I am. So, when you go through and read all these, like, I mean, the testimonials are great, sure, but not even that. I mean, the other parts of the website where I'm talking about like my philosophies, that's really important, I think. And sometimes it just takes talking to somebody for a couple minutes on the phone. Like if somebody calls me and they're interested in consulting, even just a quick 10-minute conversation, it's kind of like a vibe thing. I mean, you kind of you're going to know when you talk to somebody in the first 5-10 minutes of a conversation if you like this consultant, if you feel like this consultant's going to help you, is going to vibe with you, is going to understand where you're coming from. So just go with your gut on that, but reach out and try to make contact. If you can get somebody on the phone, I think that's a really good way to gauge. Are they giving you the time of day? Are they trying to get you off the phone? Are they just trying to sell you a consultation? I mean, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I mean, we're all trying. Listen, we don't make a lot of money in this, animal industry, but it's not really about that, obviously, or else we would, I don't know,
Wouldn't be
I'd be an
doing it.
accountant or something. I don't know, or a lawyer. I don't know. But that's not why we do this, So that's another thing is, is somebody giving you the time of day? Or are they answering your questions? Those types of things. Yeah.
And yeah, I think the rapport thing is really important that, because I've had people say to me, oh, worked with so and so and they were kind of condescending, or I've worked
Oh
with so
yeah.
and so and I didn't like the way they talked to me. And that's so important because so not only are we talking about a trust relationship with our animals, we're talking about a trust relationship with the consultant that we're working with too. And I think
Yeah.
it's really important for, if you're the person securing this consulting service, then you need to be comfortable. You need to be realistic about, can you help me with this? And what's my responsibility as far as what do I have to give? What do I have to put into it? And is it possible for me to do that? So you can hire the best consultant on the planet, but if you don't put into it, then you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, I know there are people that do I'll take your bird for a month and I'll train it and I'll teach it all
Yeah.
these things and I'll give it back to you fully trained. Well, the moment they give it back to you, it may be fully trained at that point, but magically it's not going to be when it gets to your house. It doesn't
Totally.
work that way
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
the thing is the nuances of every individual. And, hopefully as parrot owners, we want to learn how to do that. We want to learn, how do I make that happen? How do I interact with my bird like that? How do I strengthen that relationship? So I think that's really important. And, last but not least, the ugly dollar sign does happen. And like Jess said, none of us are, living in mansions or getting rich doing this. So consider the cost. And if it's an issue, like, don't commit if you really can't do it. And please, one of the things I kind of like to stress to people is, if a consultant tells you that they have a fee, that's the fee. Unless there are seriously extenuating circumstances, the cut rate price, somebody who's a behaviorist is not going to go, oh, well, I charged them 50% less, so I'm just going to give them, a 50% job. That's not going to happen. A good consultant is going to want to help you and really get you through this. So just kind of go with the cost. If it can, I mean, what do you think, Jess? Yeah, the dollar sign. But
Yeah. I do. I agree. Cha-ching. That's funny. No, I agree. I think that I I mean, I'll be honest, as a consultant, I feel like because I have such a desire to truly help people, I know that there are times I feel like I give away my time and I don't charge people for stuff that I probably should be charging them for. And I just don't, I can't bring myself to nickel and dime somebody over some, little bits of time here and there. I know that some people may do that. But and I'm not making a judgment about anybody else or what they're doing. I have no place to say like what another consultant is doing. I don't know. I cannot judge. I don't know the details, so I can't really speak on that. But I just know for me, I have to reel myself in because I will get on the phone with somebody and I'll be on the phone with you for an hour. And then and I'm like, oh man, that's an hour of my time I probably should have charged somebody for. But I it's so much more important to me that people get as much information from me as I can possibly give you in the time allotted. And I do give it away for free sometimes. But I also feel like, you know, it doesn't, I'm also not the kind of consultant to be like, oh, don't give away all your tricks and then they won't hire you or they won't need you after a certain period of time. I'm sorry, but I think that's really silly. I think that I have no issue at all telling you as much as I possibly can tell you in the time allotted. Like I'll give you everything I have. you know, but I do that also knowing that, um, I can't explain to you what I've learned in 15 years of training, you know. So I'll do my best, and I'm always going to give up all the info. I would never withhold anything just because I want you to pay and come back, or you know, anything like that. That's like such a crazy thought to me. Um, but yeah, I mean, I just find that for myself, like it just matters so much more to me that people really understand and can apply what I've, even the little lessons, even if you know, so one of the things I always ask people after a consultation, and I'll be like, listen, I threw a lot of information at you, and I'm sorry if it was overwhelming. I was not trying to overwhelm you. I just want to give you as many tools as possible. And I do the same thing that you had mentioned earlier, where after a session, I'll send people an email with some bullet points of like reminders of what we talked about, because I know it is a lot. Like sometimes I feel like I leave a consultation and people are like, they're like sweating, you know, they're like, that was so much information. And you know,
I gotta get this all done, and I gotta have the bird totally trained by next Friday.
yeah,
Oh no.
yeah. So, you know, it's just, I don't know. I think with information like this, I'll be the first one to give it up. And I'm not watching the clock. I should probably be better about it, but I'm not watching the clock.
But you know, and I there is so much to it, and I hope tonight, you know, this was, it wasn't a sales pitch for Jess or I, to do consulting for you. Just some things to think about if you're considering looking for a behavior consultant, if you're considering looking for someone to help. And one of the things we didn't touch on is it's not just for problem behaviors either. It may be, how do I acclimate my bird to a new environment? How do I, you know, work with a new bird? How do I introduce a bird to my flock when I'm bringing another bird home? Different things like that. You can reach out for help, and there are a lot of people that do consulting, a lot of different approaches. You know, different people come at it from very different directions, but make sure you're comfortable. I think that's really the biggest thing. Um, so any final words just to people out there who are companion parrot owners, what they could try? Or
Yeah, like a final takeaway. I would just say like a good takeaway from this is just like we mentioned earlier, just be open and be willing to learn, and just know that even as a consultant, and someone who, and there are consultants out there who have way more experience than me, so I'm just put that out there. Like I do all right, but I mean, I'm by no means like, you know, Miss I've done it all, and even Miss I've done it all hasn't done it all. So, you know, just remember, we are all learning always. It doesn't really matter how much experience you have or where you're at. Um, you know, I'm doing this because I feel like I'm at a place where I can teach people a lot of things, but I still learn all the time. I am still a
Mhm.
student to every bird that ever, you know, comes to my aviary, or that I ever see in someone's house, or even that I see on a video chat. Like, I am learning something from every single consultation, and I'm putting that knowledge in the back of my mind, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to store that in the memory banks. I'm going to make sure that, you know, I remember that. So if this comes up again, I can apply something, you know, like I'm always we're always adding to the memory bank. So yeah, I would just say, you know, be easy on yourself. Know you're going to make mistakes. That's okay. We are all students of this training game, and 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 there's definitely something to, you know, looking for a consultant that you really feel like you just vibe with, because we are all different, and people do have very different approaches. Um, some people I know are probably very different than me, with a lot of things, and that's okay. And if that helps you more, I'm not offended. Go with that person, you know, go with what helps you. So yeah, just be open, be ready to learn, know that we all have things to learn. Um, and you know, if you need the help, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. Well, I will never judge you. It's okay. What, even the worst case scenario, like I've probably heard it before, so it's really nothing surprises me anymore. I tell my clients this sometimes because they'll actually say, I've had people say to me like, oh, well, you probably never dealt with a bird that's as nasty as mine. And I'm like, listen, I I have dealt with with some aggressive birds. So
Mhm.
nothing scares me. Like your macaw, I'm sure can be very intimidating, but I did work an Andean condor, so we're good here. Like it's okay.
Yeah, and I've met just Andy and Condor, so yeah, yeah, she can handle it. Trust me.
I got
And
it.
one of the
Yeah,
things I think, if you guys could see us at like IAATE, people are like, oh, you know how to do all of this. You've got you have all these skills, blah, blah, blah. You should see all of us standing around a convention of bird nerds talking about, well, how would you do this? What would you try? What do you think? I got this situation. I don't like how this is going. How would you do this? And these are people who have been doing this for years and years and years, and they're
hmm
still working with one another, helping one another, asking for assistance. So it's not something to be ashamed of. If you need to ask for help with your bird, it's better that you ask for that. Yeah, building connections and inspiring excellence. It's really about asking for that help and enhancing the quality of life for your bird so that their welfare is just better as a whole. So thank you so much, Jess. I love kind of brainstorming, talking about what people should be looking for, and if they are indeed looking for some assistance. I just need to remind people again. I mentioned at the beginning, we've got the BOGO going on. Free shipping over $100 if your order totals over 100. Free shipping. The way the BOGO works is you order one, you get two. You don't have to put in any code. You don't. It's easy breezy. I set you up for success.
I like it.
So, and we've got lamps, we've got pillows as well. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on for the next week. And then, if you've already placed your order and you're sitting there going, "Yeah, really, I haven't got my order yet." We are swamped, but we are working on it. We're getting them out. So don't despair. And if you have questions, if you're like, okay, where's my order? Message us, please, and we'll let you know where it is in progress. All toys are made to order. There's nothing. I don't have a warehouse. I wish I did, but I don't have a warehouse. Everything is being done to order. Karen wants me to bring Jess back soon. So, all right,
I
Jess, we got to
saw
talk about that.
that.
And next week, just so you guys know, next week, 4th of July weekend, another fun and games weekend. I've got Joanna Roth joining me again, and perhaps even a special cameo appearance by her husband, Mark Roth. They own Bird Fever. And this time, you guys were asking questions. We were playing 20 questions last time we did this. This time, Joanna and Mark are going to ask you guys the questions. And it's not a one and done and you win. This is a little bit more difficult. It's a big weekend. So the Bird Fever crew is going to be asking you guys questions, and we'll see what the answers come up with. It's a chance to win some prizes, and I guarantee we'll have some laughs and that we will learn some stuff even while we're laughing. So thank you guys all for listening again. And I will see you next week. And thanks, Jess. And hopefully we'll get Jess
Thank you.
back sometime soon. Take care, guys. Bye
Thank
bye.
you
Good
so
night.
much.